generally thought that Chrissy, well, I've watched Chrissy for 2 years. Yeah, it's been 2 years. Wow, the time flies, doesn't it? Um, yeah, I've watched Chrissy for like 2 years. And, the vibe I've always caught with her was that she was, I always thought that she was a typical, dark skinned, pick me like mammy type, you know. Because she would always talk about like the rappers and the she would always talk about like people who, long ago she used to talk about black men more often as, potential partners. Now she talks about swirling sometimes, you know. And, she only talks about it to really get their goat and stuff and to, you know, in my opinion, I always thought it was to, bother black men, and I kind of have that opinion, but that, I don't know. The typical dark skinned, pick me mammy type loves to, put other people under the bus. And I always felt like, sometimes, they tend to do that because they don't get appreciation often, and they want to be appreciated for something because they're never appreciated for anything. And, so then they put themselves on this low level, and that's why they end up putting like other women down. So with the whole Serena Williams situation, you saw a lot of dark-skinned black um mammy types, like the pick me types, who post these things about, oh, yeah, never would I in all my life, ever bleach my skin. I love my natural hair and all this stuff and things of that nature, and basically putting Serena Williams down for a picture that was just in the sunlight. She wasn't even bleaching, obviously. Um, but there were plenty of black women who were coming for her for that. And, it was always, like I said, the pick me type. They're of course they're mammies, but on top of it they're pygmies. And then many of the time they're dark skinned because most, like, I don't know, they were dark skinned as well. But, well, I mean, that would make sense anyway because we're talking about bleaching. If we're talking about lighter skinned pygmy kind of mammies, it's different. Anyway, so I thought when I watched her channel, she would have kind of like the same view, negatively about, Serena Williams. But I was really appreciative of her stance on, Serena Williams. And I agree with it. She kind of has said the same thing. Like, if you looked at like many of the pictures of Serena Williams, and how, the lighting was in just one photo, but, many of the other ones, you could see her recent photos and stuff where she's obviously not much different. She's still, brown skinned, and I'll get into that in a sec. But, I really did appreciate the part where she was talking about how, with, and I didn't even know this with darker skinned women, that, with lighting, sometimes they look a lot lighter sometimes. I didn't know that. I don't know how their skin tone works because I'm lighter, but I didn't know that that happens to them as well. I just thought it happened to brown skinned women. But she was saying how that happens to darker skinned women as well, and how people were trying to use it as a reason to attack her because she was with a white man, which I do agree with. I do think that a lot of people do hate on her for that, and I feel like they hate on her because she, in many ways, by black men, was preferred in one way or another, but that's a whole nother story. and I don't feel like talking about that in this video. Um, what was I saying? Yeah, I do see, though I still think that she focuses a lot on men, and black men and, its effect on black women who want them or have been involved with them or are involved with them like her. But most of everything, I find it really, really interesting and, how it just depends on people, on how people are perceived, Because, you know, Serena Williams is not really much different in, complexion to like someone like Nicki Minaj. They're both brown skinned women. And I find it really, really weird because, I've heard her say how people like Nicki Minaj were not even black people, even though, someone like Nicki Minaj has the same complexion and has two parents of African ancestry. Yet, she totally sided with Serena Williams and even implied that she was dark skinned, even though people pointed out how she was actually brown skinned. And you see that often with brown skinned people, in my opinion, where, brown skinned people will be treated differently when it comes to colorism and dark skinned people and how people perceive them, you know, depending on more their features rather than their actual skin tone. I feel like many of the time our skin tone is not even really a part of the equation so much because our skin tone can go either way. Some people can even assert like people like Serena Williams are like, considered like a dark skinned black woman, even though she's brown skinned. And like someone like a Nicki Minaj could be more like associated with being mixed and lighter skinned, even though she's brown skinned too. And a lot of the time I've seen, other dark skinned people will like pick and choose which brown skinned people they're going to treat as their own and which black like brown skinned people they're going to treat as, differently. And it was always problematic for me because it's always been like, you know, you go through this point with being like a brown skinned person where sometimes you're acceptable, but sometimes you're not. And, you try harder to, fit in, and then you end up feeling like, for some, I guess, some not really, some might actually fit in completely. But you get to this point where it's like you're playing a game of like ping pong or something where like you're in and out, in and out, and in and out kind of like situation. But with all that said, hearing her live made me see how I can actually agree with her on some issues, depending on what it is. In this case, I actually really did like her last live. It was very nice to hear someone actually stand up for Serena Williams and actually admit that, it obviously wasn't bleach and, that, you know, people's skin tone actually does change with different lighting and things of that nature. So yeah, it was just pleasant for me to watch that live. So I thought I would chime in, and I know it's probably odd to some people on here that I was pointing out that I appreciated the live of her since I've said what I've said in the past about her. But I've also said in other videos how I actually feel like I can agree with her on some issues, even though I may not like her as a person or what her platform stands for. In fact, I remember in my first video about something involving her, not specifically her, I think it was between her and Jessica X. I was saying how I agreed with her more, but I think I liked Jessica X more, or something of that nature. But I just generally, honestly, I don't know, like, in this case, I just want to be more honest about, you know, my, I guess, outlook and like review on her last video, basically. So, yeah, like I said, I actually like that live and yeah, very much appreciate it. I actually like the video. Obviously not subscribed, but I did like the video. So, that's all I have to say. Thanks for watching. Bye.